This is Movietone. Leslie Mitchell reporting. The royal procession to the Mall by way of Marble Arch, Charing Cross Road and Whitehall was seen and cheered by huge crowds which had been assembling all night. At last, the long-awaited victory celebrations had begun, and as the King and Queen neared the saluting base, the pent-up emotions of the people broke loose. They cheered and cheered and cheered. While the mechanized column was still rumbling round London, those people lucky enough to be in the Mall saw a display of marching and counter-marching by massed pipes of Scottish and Irish regiments. At the saluting base, enjoying to the full this manifestation of the victory which he had worked so hard to achieve, sat the familiar figure. Leading it came a man whose name has become synonymous with victory, a man whose black beret with its double badges have become famous the world over. And behind him, the tanks, the specialized equipment of the engineers, and all the panoply of modern battle. During the war, many of these vehicles had been on the secret list. Now London had a chance to see them, and a chance... Following the mechanized units came the marching column. Servicemen and women, led by our allies, first America. Who stayed with us to the end, fighting on the battlefields beside us and fighting in secret from their own homelands. Then men from the Empire, from India, from Australia. But perhaps the biggest welcome was for our own services. This was the first real chance to show them our gratitude and appreciation. The Navy... Following them, the Army, men from all branches of the service, justly proud of their part in achieving victory. But it hasn't been only a soldier's war, and in this Thanks for Victory show, the civilian services were all represented. The men and women who made the weapons, grew the food, mined the coal, they were all there, sharing the triumphs of the fighting men. And bringing up the rear, the Royal Air Force, the youngest service, but a service whose deeds will ever be remembered by a grateful people. And so the great parade passed. Afterwards, the crowd moved on to while away the time until the evening show began. The rain did its best to spoil the afternoon, but who cared? This was Victory Day. By the time darkness fell, the weather had cleared a bit, and London was packed with rejoicing people determined to enjoy themselves, rain or no rain. While some danced and some sang, bonfires were lit, and even the poor old feet were forgotten in the joys of celebration. But while London celebrated, Movietone worked on through the night to bring you these historic pictures of a great occasion. There was certainly plenty for the crowds to do and see. London was floodlit, and as usual on these occasions, the palace was the centre of attraction. Westminster Abbey was illuminated in company with most of London's important buildings. In Trafalgar Square, Admiralty Arch, under which the procession had passed earlier in the day, and away in the city, the Mansion House. The Naval College at Greenwich, one of the cradles of our nautical tradition, was en fete, and on the river, ships which during the war had sailed in darkness were brilliantly outlined for all to see. Back to the West End for the last part of the organised programme. 80 searchlights saluted the royal family as they came by barge from Chelsea to the terrace of the Houses of Parliament, there to watch one of the most spectacular displays ever staged in the capital. These are just a few of the things the people saw on the night of June the 8th. This was the scene as 800 jets of water were pumped high into the air and illuminated in many colours. But the brightest of all was the fireworks display. London was celebrating wholeheartedly in a way which was unforgettable, a fitting climax to a thrilling programme. Once more the night air was rent with explosives, once more the sky was aflame, but this time it was in celebration. This time it was victory. In this way, the official celebrations ended on a note of thanksgiving and rejoicing. London and its visitors from all parts of the country had had a real day out, everybody had enjoyed themselves to the full, victory had been celebrated, and it was time now to go home and return to the task of building that peace and prosperity which we all so earnestly desire. This is Movietone.